Welcome to Rogue's Legal AI Conversations, where I'm having grounded discussions about AI in law with legal professionals. I'm here today with Srinidhi Ranganathan, a founder and CEO of Agreed Pro. She's had a really interesting journey, starting with an engineering background, moving into investment banking at places like Goldman and JP Morgan, and now she's building AI tools to make legal and business processes run a lot smoother. Hi Srinidhi, thanks so much for joining. I wanted to ask you if in the start you can say a word or two about yourself and your journey into the space where we're at now.
Yep, obviously. Hello everyone. I am Srinidhi, and I'm pretty new to this space. I am a first-time new startup founder. Most of my work experience has been in finance. I started my career at Goldman, then went on to work in investment banking, but my undergraduate degree was in engineering. I did research science when I was very young, and then decided to move into finance and business because I realized that you kind of need to understand the flow of money. Ideas in itself don't become fruitful without a business reason or capital behind it. So that was my motivation. And as far as my startup journey is concerned, there was still like this little engineer inside me she was getting very upset with the monotonous banking job, and it was time for me to do something for myself, something different, and that's how I got started. My interest in the legal tech space, or rather legal and AI, actually stems from my experience in investment banking. I realized that a lot of work that I was doing, because of the kind of deals that I was working on, were extremely legal doc heavy, parsing through credit agreements, indentures, trying to understand different clauses, structuring deals around them. For someone who didn't have a legal training, was very difficult, but also like bread and butter of the job. And it was not just me; it was a lot of business people on that front who had to deal with just like legal documentation every day, and figure things out. And when LLMs started really taking shape in their current form and becoming more and more powerful, I saw a big opportunity there, to develop technological solutions that kind of bridge that gap between business and legal. That's how I got started with it.
And currently, you're a CEO and founder of Agreed Pro,
Yep.
but you're not with Agreed Pro a first-time founder, right?
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, you had a venture before that, right? Where you kind of
Uh,
had to pivot.
Oh, no, that's right. But like it was always called Agreed Pro. I just like changed the concept, or where I wanted to focus a lot. I did start on the B2C side, and there was good reason for that. My market research validated that the market was huge. It was ripe for disruption because of the barrier or disparity in legal services for the consumer market, especially in the US. Of like they're all like priced out of affordable legal solutions, but the market being big is one thing. There are other things to be considered. One of the big challenges that we hit early on was willingness to pay, and also like uh, there are like historical issues that I read about, for example, like with LegalZoom or other B2C legal companies that have now grown and are very successful companies, but they came with their fair share of struggles with who shoulders liability in a B2C setup. So that was like an interesting insight or read that I kind of came across once I started like validating the MVP in the market. Like we got good response, but then we moved away from it. We started getting a lot of interest from startups, and it was very easy for us to get paying customers pretty early on, even though we were so new, like just had an MVP. Like it was a good MVP. Like we've always been technologically strong, but that is also something that I have moved away from. And another like learning lesson for like anyone who is on this startup journey, that yeah, yes, like the VC market or like the general like consensus now is to chase your first paying customer. But again, like just like the first idea of like the B2C space, the first paying customer validation is just one angle. There are so many angles to really like look at your business position with, and you need to consider all of them before moving ahead. So the third time around, I've been much slower actually in considering every possible direction and angle, and not going at something very hard because it's like easy to find customers, or like easy to get money there. Like yes, like you might get 10,000 $20,000, but like can you hit the bigger ticket amounts? Like that's what you should be working towards, because not all tools are scalable. Not all problems are worth solving. Some problems are more valuable than others, and I do think you should take your time to find that sweet spot for yourself, because there's just like no point, trying to make yeah, like $100,000 a year. It's just like not I mean, for your first few years, it's fine. Like I'm talking about like a long run. Like you need to like figure out a proper fit for yourself for like bigger economic success.
Yeah, and I like that applicability of capabilities with you. It's always you're always kind of standing with your both feet on ground, looking at it very pragmatically. Just the other day, we had a conversation when you were saying that you got advice for a specific industry or a part of it very niche down, what to look into, and you quickly analyzed that the advice was given from only one perspective, but there's many others that kind of showed this same problem in a completely different light, and it didn't seem so lucrative anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and this is something that you often hear on Shark Tank actually. Even though like Shark Tank and like what we are doing is not apples, but often like the I don't know if good to call them judges. No, the investors often make a comment when participants come in there saying that this is a huge market. I mean, it's fine, it's a huge market, but like how are you exactly going to capture the market? Like what's your execution strategy? That is extremely important, and I do think a lot of first time founder mistakes are around this, yeah, huge market perspective, which I think is a fallacy, or it's kind of like a nice looking trap that you want to enter into. And there's nothing wrong with a huge market, but like you need to have a proper execution strategy to actually be able to capture market share in it. It's
yeah.
not like just like freely available out there for you. And the other aspect that I would say is competition. I have a different view on that. I think a lot of advice that you get around is like VC insinuated advice as to go and find all these blue oceans, or like create a product that never existed before. Yes, like if a VC invests in something like that, then they're going to get like like 1,000% return, or something ridiculous like that. But is it the good journey for you? Like it depends on the kind of like a career and financial goals that you are trying to meet. Sometimes the best idea is actually in a red ocean, so you don't have to worry about finding a product market fit, because that product market fit exact already exists. You just need to perfect the execution strategy, or build, or like bring something special to gain market share from competitors. And that's like a totally like fine way to do things, and not go the hard route of building the next Airbnb or something.
Yeah, very interesting. And what you said in the end, the final part kind of gave us a great segue into grounding our conversation more into AI,
Yeah.
because as I know from our conversations, you have a lot of opinions around exactly the topic that you were going into, and we've been talking a lot what is dominating currently the legal tech space, specifically around AI. And you said that most of the tools that you see are the founders are ex-lawyers. That does create some friction. Problem.
I
How do you view this situation?
Yeah,
Inherently.
I think it is definitely like great to see like ex-lawyers as legal tech founders because they probably like understand workflows or how a lawyer works very well and can inform UI design or like what is expected from like the tool and things like that, which is like pretty valuable. And like like I have conversations with law firm partners all the time. Like I'm always like pretty plugged into that space and conversations, even though like my tool is much broader than that and not really so targeted, to get like more ideas and insights on how they think, and so on and so forth on those sides. But the gap that I am seeing right now, or like the concern that I see, is one, an echo chamber where the same ideas are being recirculated because there is not enough diversity in perspective. But like the bigger problem that I see is like the lack of technical education, or some claims that are being made that just like are completely false and do not stand any technical ground. And because AI, the way that we know it today, like artificial intelligence as a field has existed for many decades. Like the AI that we talk about right now is like the large language models and how they've come to take over the space. And because that is so new, a lot of us are just like not educated on what's possible, what is not, and it is very, very difficult for the buyer to understand so much about the technology, and they generally depend on the vendors to educate them on what is possible, what is not, like how they can use the technology. And it is kind of getting scary, of how like just like claims are being thrown around, probably like to accelerate sales, and not be grounded in the technical reality. That's like that definitely concerns me. And it's also like interesting because many of like these lawyers turned tech founders have obviously like spent so many years being risk averse. Like they were trained from their education to be very conservative, very risk averse. So I don't know like where the gap arises after they switch to the tech world, and why it is so easy for them to say things like zero hallucination and stuff like that, that we will get into. And yeah, that is something that is top of mind for me now and then.
Yeah, yeah, no. So there's a lot of things around this that are very interested and that are very interesting, and especially the impact on the products that are being built in the end. Um, I do see the most success currently, and I mean success by the adoption of usage, coming with tools that have combined the technical and the legal expert behind. Yeah, in those cases, there are people that understand the workflows, the processes, the day to day, the nitty gritty friction that a lawyer or a non-technical non-legal legal professional is going through. And in these cases, a technological mind can ground the development of the product, because you as a non-technical founder might think that some things are possible because it's so hyped in the media today, and the ease of implementation is so hyped. However, that might kill your whole development cycle, because it might take 8 months instead of two, and the results are definitely not where you want them to be. So that, I think, is a very important aspect with the whole
Yeah, yeah,
scheme.
absolutely. And I would like to see more technologists or like engineers like be on the forefront of the development. Like as you said, like understanding workflows is important, and that it is an important aspect, but that is one aspect. At the end of the day, it is still a software. You need a strong engineer's voice behind it, and actually lead the product development as well. And I worry that there is some sort of shallowness in a lot of tools that have gained traction in the market today. Like they basically appear as rappers, and again, like I have nothing against rappers. Rappers are great.
I wanted to ask you like about those rappers a little bit, because this is a great segue into you explaining a little bit how the tool works. Not how the tool works, but what kind of paradigm or approach did you take when developing this? And then um, there are tools out there where people are taking this approach when developing them, but they're usually engineering founders.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and how did it come that you kind of understood that that approach is needed? And also, like, this is a great example that explains what a rapper actually is, because I feel like people don't ask what a rapper is when you say a rapper, but I don't really feel they understand that there is like, it's like how would you say, like there's an engine, and
Mm-hmm.
you really don't understand how the engine works, but what you're doing is you're just changing a steering wheel and then
Mm-hmm.
selling that same engine with a different steering wheel with $1 million price tag on it. And
Yeah.
that's actually what a rapper is, if we tie this back to reality, because this is what is happening in reality. And then yeah, then you can tell me a little bit about how did you approach this to be different than that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I've had like two ideas of mine disvalidated for their own reasons. Like, again, like I got curious or like extremely interested in the legal plus AI space because, in my opinion, this is the first time where a technological breakthrough is able to transform the legal profession in a way that was not possible by many other technological breakthroughs that we benefited off of. Like calculators did nothing, computers gave a better interface for legal professionals to type in, for example, the internet, or like B2C SaaS kind of services like helped companies like LegalZoom thrive because it made like forms, regular forms, agreements, and stuff like that much more accessible to the public. But I don't think there has been a time where the underlying technology supported such a big disruption, and that's what got me interested in the space in general, because again, like we are talking about large language models, and legal work is exactly that, like words, black and white. Now how you use those words, like what's the context behind them, why we need lawyers, like those are all like added nuances to this whole aspect that we can get into later on. But for me, why I took a different approach is because one, I had a technical background myself, so there were many things that were easier for me to understand and grasp at a personal level, like without being dependent on a co-founder to always explain things to me. And the second is that from like a business person's perspective, I see more value in capacity scaling than just like some 20-30% efficiency gain for a professional. So I went really hard on consistency, which is a gap with a lot of these tools, and it is not that easy to achieve that kind of consistency with LLMs because like their inherent building blocks are around the aspect of hallucination. Like hallucination is not even a bad thing. It is like how these models work, because they are designed to predict the next word, and that's how they are going to work. But then how do you ground them into context such that you get a high level of consistency, to the extent that you don't always need a legal professional actually reviewing things? Like they just like become so consistent that the tool becomes an opportunity for self-serve to the business side, which is where I come from and where I experience the most pain, dealing with these legal documentations that I had to deal with. So like bringing in knowledge from different aspects of my career or life led me this way to kind of think differently, and like work on a tool that made sense to me, both for my business person persona and also my engineer persona.
So basically, there are quite a lot of things I want to ask you on top of building on top of what you were saying now. One thing, first thing, you were saying hallucinations are inherently not bad. It's literally how it works. It hallucinates, it predicts based on the content, which is your prompt, and the patterns over the data it was trained on. Um, so it's really hard, I imagine, to ground them because the volume of the data that it was trained on is so big, literally the whole internet. Um, so now you're giving it a few instructions and you're trying to ask it to follow those more than it followed all the patterns over the whole internet, which is pretty hard. How do you view the conversational interface where, like chatbots, where people are asking questions, over you as the tool developer being able to steer the conversation without the user having input?
Yeah. So when I really started researching on like what LLMs can do, and also like when I started thinking about going the startup route, I began watching a lot of Y Combinator videos. This was in the summer of 2024, when I was just like still figuring things out. I just I was on like a vacation and just like watching videos and figuring things out. And one of the videos that stuck with me was Jerry Tan. I think that's what his name is. He's a YC partner, and he mentions that he doesn't think this chat interface is how the AI revolution will work. Like it has to be more than that. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense, because like I don't want to be chatting with something to get my job done. Like I do get why this whole chat attitude caught fire, because we have been trained by Google to ask, like by using Google so much, like we as a population have been trained to frame questions a certain way. And now using Google is very, very different from using Chat GPT. Like this is something like, a lot of us don't understand yet. If I want to know time difference, I ask Google. I do not ask Chat GPT. If I
Yeah.
want to know something extremely specific very quickly, I still, like even now, I ask Google. I do not ask any of the AI tools, because of like the inherent ways in which it works. And that's what like Jerry Tan was getting at. That this is not how you can put like an AI system into enterprise workflows, and make users to chat with the system, because that's just like not efficient, and he doesn't see things picking up that way. But I would say in the past year he has been proven wrong by the market, or like by the vendors rather, because most of the tools have been chat based and they have been selling. It's not like they do not
Yeah.
have sales. But I think he is right in like the fundamental logic of it. And like when you see the more sophisticated tools come out, where you don't really have to chat with the interface, and it collects information from you in a structured format and delivers consistency to you. Like when you do like experience those tools, like you as a user will very quickly move from the trouble of prompts and chatting, because it's really not worth your time. I've been reading a lot of like LinkedIn posts, and third, what do you call that, not first hand information but second hand information on how with junior associates they are using these AI tools, but then they also have to check all their work. So they did like gain that initial efficiency, but if you anyway have to go through everything word by word because you're scared that something might have gone wrong, then there is no real efficiency gain end to end in that workflow. And that is very problematic. And like when are you going to realize ROI, if that is the case? And like you can't develop trust with a system where you're getting like such huge outputs, and there's no way to audit and verify quickly on what is right, what is wrong. So that's something that I see as a big problem here. And again, on prompts, like you can add more because you are the AI engineer here. Is from what I've seen, even like personally, like 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 you may write like a 100-word prompt and use it today, but like 2-3 months from now the same prompt on the same model might not work because they have updated something in the model, or like something else has changed. So I just like don't get why so many tools still live in the prompt world, and it kind of like baffles me on what is the real like value gain that users are getting out of it.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of good points. Yeah, so first, um, I do agree with you on the conversational part, because imagine those are models that work in very specific ways, and you do need to understand a little bit of behind the scenes how it works. Imagine if you don't understand how revs in an engine work, then you can be revving the engine constantly, not knowing that running it at 6,000 is going to blow up the engine at some point, the cylinders, right? Because you just don't understand. Okay, there's noise, so what? So it's also the same with models. Like, and I do feel that it is such a complex topic. Like, this is machine learning. This is that is working 40 hours a week minimum, because yeah, in the US I think people work much longer. But who in their mind has time to be learning about machine learning concepts and how those models work? Their knowledge was not really something, that knowledge was not really something useful unless you were a professional, or unless you were a user of such a service, right? But now everybody can talk to it, which does open the Pandora gate of a lot of shit that is going to go through those gates, because you do need to understand a little bit of those neural nets if you want to use them the best way. And that is not happening. That's why when all this started, I was in an enterprise working on open source projects, and GPT-3 came out, and I was very interested in how do I take control of this from the engineering perspective, because with GPT-3, what came with it was also an API, so we could talk to it behind. This is exactly what we were also starting to look into from the perspective of how can we ground them. And pretty soon we started realizing that AI shouldn't be given to, if you want to really have measurable value, or value that you can somehow specify, if you don't want to be training your people on how to use it extensively. And it's a process. Training is not something that you do a 2-week workshop and you've mastered it, so you can move on, because those models, as you said, develop. Do you have time investing your time into this? So how many lawyers today that are actually using this technology are using it in the way that they're getting the best value out of it, not asking it to do things for them, but using it in a systematic way so they can get what they can get out of it, and then they put their expertise on top of this. Not a lot. I do talk to a lot of lawyers, a lot of legal teams, and not a lot of them are using it in that way. I see there's a lot of gap between what technology can do and how is it being used and applied today. Um, that's one thing, and then you could go as a tool provider for let's also raise awareness and educate people, which is a long-term battle. What you can do is you can really understand the problem, the workflow, look at it as a system. What I like to say is you can look at switching on the light as a one-step action, but you can look at it as a three-step action. You have to raise your hand, you have to press, and you have to release. So looking at everything we do as workflows, you can look at, at the tasks that legal professionals are doing at workflows. So if you really understand it, then you can specify steps that are repeated every time. Some steps are done differently. In some steps, you can use just a simple automation, data engineering, which is what you're doing also with your platform. Some steps require a little bit of AI, and there, try to make that scope as small as possible. Because if you're going to ask AI to do two things at the same time, the probability of success just halved or more.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how also kind of we connected so well, because we do have kind of the same understanding around this whole spectrum.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have two follow-up questions for you. One, it'll be curious for you to, I don't even know if I know the full story yet on how you got interested in AI and legal and, got started with working with small law firms. And the second question I'll ask you after you answer my first question.
How it started was with one client. So I had this lawyer that I was using, and we developed some sort of a relationship over the time that we were working together. And as I was freelancing already out of the enterprise, I was looking more and more into having my own business, but I didn't have a good idea on what product to develop. So I was still like approaching it from a service-based point of view. So I started working with this lawyer because she had a problem, and that problem seemed pretty simple to me. So we solved it very, very quickly. But the impact that it had was great, and yeah, great. Not like great, oh, amazing, but like it was a measurable and a big impact. It did save a lot of time throughout her day, and we might be underestimating some tasks, but when you multiply them over days, weeks, and months, it's and translate them into money, it's a lot. Um, what I really really liked about this, because I did work with many industries before that, what I really liked about this is the way that she was approaching things systematically. So then, word of mouth. She said, "Oh, I think a couple of my friends that are also like, two, three people law firms have the same problem." So that's how I gotten into it. But every single one of them was approaching the problems and discussions the same way. So that's what I was really missing in other industries. Um, so that's why I kind of stayed here, and basically soon everything that I was doing was around legal teams. And now I'm getting a lot of questions if I only work with law firms from in-house teams. Not a lot, but some. I'm getting some questions, so now I'm I'm rethinking my existence at this point.
But summarize it, what you liked about the space, that you had, what do you call, a cohesive view or perspective across all the law firms. Like they were looking at problems from one direction, and you were able to like see that pattern among them. And also like it like made sense to you from an engineer's perspective on like something that is repeating, a issue that is repeating, and you can go and solve it. And a minor follow question, like why AI? I know like that is what's like picking up space right now, but picking up pace right now, but there have been many other legal tech tools that law firms have been using, but your work is more and more focused on AI and implementation, and just like curious to know why that.
um,
I mean, you're an AI engineer for starters.
yeah, actually, the thing is that At the start, I was really pushing implementation. So you have those problems can be solved like this and like that. But I understood that I started to understand more and more the gap between what it can do and what it should do from the perspective of the applicability. If you have had a Fiat 500 and that did a good enough job for you for years, and it has some core issues that you can address, you should do that. You should not buy a Ferrari immediately because you don't need it, because it does a good enough job for you. So imagine if you can improve that 30%. That's one thing. But the other thing is that also with Ferrari, there comes a huge cost of maintenance. And that is a thing that smaller firms cannot afford. They cannot afford getting everything out of AI that can be gotten out of AI today. And I think that you can testify to this. I think that's why you decided for deterministic flows, because you can guarantee the success of your tool, as opposed to let's go into embedding space and become another AI VC research company that's going to have a successful exit, right?
Yeah, that's fair. But this reminds me of something, or like maybe a segue into something else, is how lawyers have been using the tools that came before the AI generation, and not just lawyers, like all of us. Like, let's just take Google as like a popular B2C example. We are just like so used to the deterministic nature of Google. Like, it might not always give the best answer, or like we might have to put in some effort from our end to find what we want from that page. But we can be sure that we will find that something that is true relevant. But with like the AI tools, like it is switched on its head, because you do get a nice formatted, easy to consume answer very quickly. But then if you do want something extremely deterministic, like you still like need to go that extra mile to figure that out. And now the problem is the human psychology, or the experience that we as humans are used to. And because we are so used to deterministic tools, and this is not just in the practice of law but everywhere, then you insert an AI tool and the expectation is always deterministic outputs, and we are not ready to deal with probabilistic tools or probabilistic outputs yet.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
sometimes, like we just like forget that we need to do an extra layer of check. And my this probably is the reason you see all these like hallucinated cases going
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
like finding their way into courts. And like, I don't think the lawyers are lazy. I think they are so used to the tools before this new tool that they've been using, that had been giving them such a high accuracy. It was probably like difficult for them to spot, like one, two, three hallucinated like citations, like in that big list that they were already preparing. And yeah, like it is probably like on them to check. But like I also like kind of have some kind of sympathy for that
Yeah.
aspect.
No, yeah, that I never thought of it from that perspective, but you're definitely right. Imagine all those, SQL UI looking dashboards where you would go in and it would like fetch a few papers and you would know that this is correct. You could be 100% sure. And now from using this 20, 30 years into, hey, so you need to, one entry of a message is just the start. You go into a journey. So yeah, it's a big jump. Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely get it.
And
And that's, oh
you want
yeah,
to say
no, I just
something?
wanted to say that that's also one of the reasons that I'm not for a while now focusing on engineering anymore, because like engineering is just when you really, really identified what is your problem and you have all the foundation already set up. But I do feel that 95% of the firms that I observe, not only that I am working with, but also the ones that I am just talking with, do not have the foundation set and do not understand how to set the foundation. But let's go even further back, they do not understand how to get the best results out of the tools that they already have, and even just ChatGPT. So like there's a big journey that we need to go through, and I'm more focusing on like kind of educating, doing workshops, and kind of figuring out what is the situation and helping on the strategic level. At the point where any kind of technology is needed, would definitely advise looking into the tools that are out there. Because when you're at a point that you have identified which problem you have, it's going to be easier for you to find the tool that's going to solve that problem. And implementation last, because custom development costs. Maintenance and adding a few things on top of that costs more than initially coming up with it. So like, yes, I do that, but to have success, you do need funds and time. Let's say that you're a in-house team or a business development team within a organization, and you are getting pitched a lot of AI tools. You need to make a decision because, yeah, the decision was made that you're going to go forward with AI, and you don't know where to start, how to look at it, how to differentiate between the hypey tool that is just like promising and the tool that actually does the job.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to evaluate when you are bombarded by hundreds of tools. In fact, like I shared that message with you where I was trying to contact someone for research, and they thought, I was like making a sales pitch, and like, even though he wrote such a nice, long, insightful email to me, like he was like, and we are going to be speaking, but he was like, no, like I don't think I want another sales pitch. Like that's the level of frustration that in-house teams have. I do a lot of like research with in-house teams, but I might not end up like positioning my tool exclusively for them. And with in-house teams, what I've realized is like, as you said, like they are bombarded with like many of these AI tools in the market, and like in-house is a special function. Like they are lawyers, but they are not law firms. Like they are working on issues or like situations for the company, and the regular legal operations and processes that the company needs. And like many of the in-house departments have kind of in the past as well like found ways to be efficient as they could, but they have been decreasing in headcount over the past 10 years. Like right now they are extremely small, lean teams, and they just like don't have the time to go through all these like gazillion AI tools in the market. Now, how do you make a choice? It is generally very difficult for them, especially when everything looks and feels the same, like every vendor is saying the same thing. But one tip, if I may offer, is probably like LinkedIn posts or your thought research, or like thought pieces that a founder or like that startup might be putting out. You can really gain a sense of technical depth through pieces, research articles, or things that a founder is saying independently of AI as a technology, rather than in the realm of marketing or client propositioning. Maybe that's where like you can really weed out like the better ones from the ones that have just put something around APIs and are now trying to sell it to you. Let's take training as an example. It is, I mean, no one is really like from the academic definition of training an LLM. Like first of all, no one is doing that apart from OpenAI and big companies like that. You need a lot of resources to do that. But even fine tuning, which is like additional training that you are giving, that is also not that easy. But even if that startup apparently is doing this fine tuning, is it of any use? Like that is highly debatable. Like as you mentioned earlier, these like mega models have already seen so much on the internet, and that includes a lot of like contracts and other like government legal data that is just like publicly available all around the world, and all of that has already been exposed. So like how are you exactly shifting weights to give better outputs? That kind of is a question that needs to be asked more, but more importantly, like see how like that tool really fits into your workflows, or like how they are positioning your tool, that it is not just that you get 2 or 3 hours back in your day. It is a much bigger gain than that. That's only how you can prove business value, which at the end of the day like makes the final decision on like how well the business is doing, the team is doing, so on and so forth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I couldn't agree more with all the points you said. And one other thing, if I might add, I think it's also important for them to check where the data is going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that yeah, even before AI came, we've been all screaming that, and yeah, some do, some don't, some care, some don't. Uh, so yeah, it
we
is what
should
it
we
is.
should do one or just on data. Like I was
Yeah,
myself,
that would be
like
interesting.
I myself learned a lot from you about how like it's not GDPR compliant to just upload something on ChatGPT. And I actually had a question for you. I think from what I read afterwards, it might also be the case that even if you are using APIs, like it's still not that like you are compliant with. So basically, like these wrappers on this thing are still not like working the way that they
Look,
should.
imagine, imagine that you're in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, there's a special act around processing data of minors.
Yeah.
If a minor is below, including and below 16 years old, there's additional constraints and regulations on top of that. One of them is that the data of the personally identifiable data of a minor of 16 and below. Personally identifiable, I think that we both know. So I'm just gonna say it because maybe not everybody knows. It's not just the name, surname, address, your social security number, but it is everything that can contextually identify a person. So if there is a text describing a person that has a gray jacket in a room, and then there's a video where there is only that person in a room, that was personally identifiable information, and that is sensitive information. So I'm just explaining this because I want people to understand that everything that is in conversations, not just names and surnames and those things, there is so much things that can identify you on an emotional level, on a psychological level, that can enable profiling. Like this is gold for analysis. So imagine all of that information for a minor under 16 needs to stay within the country, so it should not leave. Like there should not be an electricity cable that routes to another continent. But when you're talking to ChatGPT, I don't think there is a single server in Europe officially owned by OpenAI. I think all of them are in data centers in the US. So yes, maybe if even if you use API, yes, they are not storing your data, which means they cannot analyze it. But physically speaking, if you want to use the artificial intelligence that is currently physically located in US and you are in Europe, your message, your prompt will travel cross borders, which is already you're not then compliant to this specific yeah, policy act. So imagine there are so many different layers that you need to look into. And then there is another question, like OpenAI has data processing agreements with, it's very, oh no, so yeah, I wanted to say that in Adyan I was in a team of 7 people. We were developing a small part of the platform for years, and we had more than 50 different partners. Imagine how many partners a company like OpenAI has. Those are those third-party partners that are specified in their policy online. So imagine the data is traveling to them. How many companies do they have processing agreements with? So like, how deep can you go? How can you guarantee where your data is ending up? I don't think there's a way. There's a way, which is use different models and use private deployments because yes, the data is stored on a private cloud, but it's not being analyzed. It's not being looked into. It's stored for your regulatory purposes because you need to hand over an audit log in an event of e-discovery, for example. So you need your data not to be destroyed, but you still need a way to control where the piece of a device where a data lives, and you can achieve that today, and it's much cheaper than people think, and you definitely don't need a $200 subscription per attorney for that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you so much, Srinidhi, for taking the time. It was a super insightful conversation. Hopefully we're going to be able to have some more in the future. I wish
Yeah.
you all well with the Grid Pro and with any kind of venture you might have.
Yep, sounds good. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thanks for listening. I hope you got as much out of this conversation with Srinidhi as I did. If you did, make sure to follow along so you can catch the next episode when it drops. See you in the next one.